tell me about working with the director Michael Winterbottom. You did 24-Hour Party People and Wonderland. Him, he's an extraordinary director.
Yeah.
He has to be the most unpredictable director.
Yeah, he is, isn't he?
Is it fun to actually inhabit his imagination?
Yeah, absolutely is. I love working with Michael. I'd do it all the time if I could. It's like the Revolution. He's like a big family, which I know and love, and they're wonderful people to work for. He's a great director. I nearly worked with him really early on in the 90s, and something didn't work. We couldn't do it, and because of that, he was very apologetic and offered me the part in Wonderland, which I still think now, as a film, as a piece of work, is one of the things I'm most proud of. Not necessarily my role in it, but the actual film itself, I think, is wonderful film. And since then we've worked together. 24-Hour Party People was the next one. It's not as many times as you think, actually. I thought we had worked together a lot more, but we're friends, so I see him quite a bit anyway, and it probably just feels like it. But we've done Wonderland, 24-Hour Party People, which I would have been furious if he hadn't cast me in, because it was about the place that I'm from and the things that I love, the bands that I'm into, and luckily he did. It was fine. So, and then Every Day, which was a really interesting thing to do, and it crept by over 5 years, which seemed to be like a never-ending job.
Did you find that easy to go back to return to over that long period of time?
No, not easy. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, especially the prison bits. It's never that much fun filming in a prison. It's just not. So it was. I'd be in the middle of a job, or I'd just finished another job, and I'd go off and do it. And it was a strange thing. It was like being in a volunteer film. I don't know, because every so often I'd forget about it and get this call a year later. You're going back to prison again. Oh, why? Oh, yes, of course, yes, of course. And then go back, and but it worked brilliantly, especially with the relationships with me and the children, because we'd be awkward with each other. Of course we would, and so would any family. You haven't seen them for a long time, and it worked brilliantly in that aspect. And of course he wanted to do it. He wanted to show the aging process in real time, which was amazing. I don't think it's ever been done apart from on a documentary. I'm really proud with the finished result. I think it's a great film.
Is he an actor's director? What's he actually like to work with?
He's really easy to work with. He's great. He's a brilliant director. He'll drop you a little note sometimes, or he'll come in and talk to you about a scene. He's fantastic with the kids. I mean, how he got those performances out of those children who are not actors was amazing. I mean, the way he's done it. And like you say, everything he does is completely different. Every style of film he does, he'll go off and do the big American things, and then he'll come back.
And then he did one on terrorism. I mean.
Yeah, he's an amazing director. I'm in awe of the man. I'm a huge fan of his work, even stuff that I'm not in, obviously. But I think he's just a visionary. He's a great director, one of our greats.
What about the actual subject matter? Did it make you think about the nature of freedom? The idea of having your freedom taken away from you?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
What that would be really like.
That would be awful. Yeah, terrible.
And to be separated from your children.
Yeah.
And people you love.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's my worst nightmare, to be separated from my children, not see them grow up. I see them grow up in short spurts, as you see them on the screen. It's heartbreaking. I can't think of anything worse.
For them not to relate to you because you don't spend enough time.
Yeah.
In their formative years when they're growing up,
yeah.
So that they're dislocated.
Yeah, I can imagine how awful that would be. I mean, I get it in a very, 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 very diluted sense by being away for months on end sometimes, and coming back and finding it difficult to fit in, and they're different with you. They sort of make you suffer a little bit, and you have to work hard to get back in there and get back in with the routine.
Do you find yourself compensating for being away?
No, because I'm quite used to it. Yeah, I guess you do. I guess you do compensate for being away, but I'm used to it, and I know what I have to do to fit back in, and I've just got to, fit into the routine again, and it's difficult, but nowhere near as difficult. It would be being in prison. Like I say, it's a very, very small part of it, so I could relate to that tiny chink, and draw on that to make to see how Ian would have felt, to portray how Ian would have felt. But I don't go with this idea that it's a cushy thing being in prison nowadays, because it's certainly not. I mean, if you've got anybody, a loved one on the outside, there's nothing cushy about being locked away from them. It's awful.
Well, it's the ultimate thing, losing your freedom, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't imagine what that must feel like.
And of course there are people in there that do become institutionalised, and people that do want to be there, really. I mean, people come back and they knock on the door, they've got loads of stories about they don't know what to do once they get out. They commit a crime to try and get back in again,
Really?
So
did you actually meet people who...
Yeah, I talked to people, that had loads of stories like that. I mean, in wardens, and there's so many stories, from prison. I mean, we showed one, which is a loving family man made a mistake, a bad mistake, and his family and him, they all pay for it. And I think that's the only thing I can portray in that film. I mean, but we did hear stories, terrible stories about different kind of people. And yeah, of course. But it's a terrifying place to be. Not a terrifying place to live. It's just I can't imagine being locked away like that. It's just awful.
Finally, as an actor, do you actually enjoy going away? Being a nomad. I think as an actor, you must actually get some pleasure from a freewheeling existence, to be able to go off at a drop of a hat.
Yeah, and in some ways.
And immerse yourself in
some
something
ways,
which is quite introspective.
But I don't have to go away to immerse myself in it. I mean, I used to enjoy being away. I used to enjoy travelling a lot. Now, to be honest, no, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy leaving my kids, family, and I hate saying goodbye. I always seem to be saying goodbye, going to an airport, or, finding myself in a hotel room. No matter where it is, if it's not in London, I'm away from home, and not a lot of things are shot in London. I think the last thing I shot in London actually was State of Play, which was like 2003. So.
So is it lonely?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean, I find it lonely anyway. It can be a hell of a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, I want to see my kids in the morning, and
you're missing out, aren't you?
Yeah, of course, you're missing out on
the
never get it back. You'll never get it back. And I know a lot of actors really regret being away for their children's formative years. But so no, I don't find the travelling and the being away in hotels fun. I've got to admit, I used to, not anymore. But I do find the job incredibly fulfilling and fun, and I don't mind where I am as long as I can do my work and do my research, which I love doing. I find the best part reading up on characters or a certain time, like for instance The Village, reading up on that time and World War One and farming. What happened to these people. I find that incredibly fulfilling, and especially something like Pinter I did last year, Betrayal. I just read about Pinter and read Pinter non-stop for as long as I possibly could get away with it, and that's amazing. Same Shakespeare and all these things, so I love my job, but I find being away from home for long periods of time, obviously, hard, but necessary.
I promised the Russians, your Russian fans, that I would ask you about Dostoevsky and Crime and Punishment, and if you had finally any plans to revisit Russian literature anytime soon.
I'm always
revisiting.
That had
an enormous impact.
I'm always revisiting Russian literature. I read the brothers Karamazov recently-ish. Maybe last year.
I think I got halfway through that.
Yeah, I persevered. It's a hell of a trek. But I always have a huge novel in the background, and sort of read 2 or 3 and things coming. But I've always got this one novel that I work my way through, and that took me about a year because I kept leaving it and going back and leaving it and going back. But it's an incredible piece of work. So I'm always reading Russian literature. I love Dostoevsky. I love him.
What do you like about him?
He's just an incredible writer. He's the feeling you get when you're in his world and in his words is indescribable. I can't. The nearest I can think is Dickens. I love Dickens, but I think they're very similar. But if push comes to shove, I'd probably prefer being in Dostoevsky's world. I think he's something about it. I mean, Crime and Punishment was my favourite book for many years. I loved it as a student, and then when I reread it, I came back and loved it. So.
Well, they're epic books about society, aren't they? They work on many different levels.
Yeah, many different levels. And you know, as long as the translation's good, he's the best. I haven't got any plans to film any more of his stuff. Unfortunately, I'd love to have the chance to, but I loved doing Crime and Punishment. It was a dream come true at the time. It really was.
Right. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you. I admired actors later on. I admired James Dean, and I admired Paul Newman, and Robert De Niro, obviously, and later Gary Oldman, but never, ever obsessively.